Welcome to 20 Minutes of Clarity.
I'm your host, Jason Noble, and joining me today is my fantastic and wonderful co-host, Andy the Man Merchant. Before we go into today's topic, we just want to recap. We just finished up the mid-year review. We're going to start this new section, this new series of our podcast going into wealth and lifestyle protection. Now, Andy mentioned as we wrapped up the last podcast, it is not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. So now we're going to get into more granular detail on this topic because it goes into when you're younger and you're working, yeah, you can have more volatility, right? But as you get longer into your lifestyle and you get closer to retirement and into retirement, it's about how much you're able to keep. Can we just keep that principle while you're working? How do you just keep as much as you can? But wealth and lifestyle protection, this is an important concept. Andy, let's go into just high-level overview. What are some of the things that they're going to be able to learn in the next couple of weeks as they go through this section of our podcast?
Yeah, well, framework is start with understanding that you've busted your butt to this point. You've got the great cash flow optimized. You've built your asset buckets. You know where things are funding. You've got a general idea of how your retirement plan could evolve no matter what phase you are. And now you got to go in there and say, I got to protect everything, right? Because what's the point of doing all of that effort, all that work, and all that focus just for it to be taken away, right? And so really what I think people are going to experience over the next few series is really one is how do you protect money from an unplanned for event, right? Life insurance is never a fun conversation to have, but it's a necessary conversation to have. So we're going to explore some of the hows we look at it, set some of the parameters around, where we pick that. That matters more for accumulation. But for those that are retiring, our retirement listeners and viewers, there is a need for life insurance, even from an income protection there. So we're going to highlight some of those really cool features there. The other side of the coin is that how do we protect wealth from being taken away? As Jason alluded, I mean, we talk a lot about how much wealth you keep, not just how much you make. So we do want to go over some of the key factors of what you look for when it comes to taxes. Because, there's a simple, you can make a simple error and end up, giving away more than you needed to in taxes. I mean, we might explore some 1031 strategies if you're selling real estate. We might talk about the impact and the importance of Roth conversion planning earlier. So those are some of the factors we want to retain wealth, right? And then the last one I think we'll highlight, or one of the key themes, is having the conversation around spending some time doing the estate or will, right? The fastest way to lose wealth is to not plan for an event that's going to happen where you have a loss of life, as we've kind of highlighted, but not having that documented, and then the effects of probate and the effects of just family disruption and the loss of wealth from that and not having enough liquidity. So I love this topic because I think that it really supports all the hard work that our listeners and our viewers and our clients go through. But we just want to take a spin on it. So we look at it as a positive versus I have to have an event that I'm not really looking forward to happen. And so I'm really excited for this series. I think it's going to open the listeners and viewers' minds to maybe some new ideas and new ways to think about it.
Yeah, and this is a part of a bigger puzzle piece. This is just one part of the puzzle, but it factors into so many different parts, like income protection. I think about this personally, like, what if I'm not able to make it into work? What does that do for my clients? What does that do for my family? I need to make sure that we have protection in there. What if something worse happens where I can't even make it home from work, right? What does that do, again, for my clients? What does that mean for my family? I need to make sure for my personal financial plan that we have some income protection principles in place and lifestyle principles protected, right? We got to make sure that's done for my family. That's just being a good steward of my financial house and being the father, right? And being the husband, right? But then what does that mean from a business perspective? That's beyond the scope of this podcast, but I got to think through that. Right. And if I'm going to think through that, why didn't I have the same conversations with our clients as they got to think through stuff like this as well? So there's not only that, but then it's like, okay, how do we then structure strategies to have downside protection to preserve the wealth? How do we have money in a well-diversified portfolio where they have public market exposure, protected money that has downside protection? We transfer the risk to someone else, and we have private market exposure, right? Again, to diversify the portfolio. We like to eat our own cooking, Andy. We're not going to tell someone to go out and do X, Y, Z when we're not willing to do it ourselves. Yep. Now, how much we do of X, Y, or Z will be customized to our clients and customized to our personal finances. But these are the things that we talk about in the Clear Picture Wealth Program. But it's part of the wealth and lifestyle protection, right? In the book, we just talked about the book series, right? The Psychology of Money with Risk and Luck. You know, he talks about in the book about, you know, he's a valet driver at one point in his life, and this guy's showing up with a really fancy car. Then all of a sudden he shows up with a very basic car. And he was like, what happened? And the guy just said casually, well, it just got repossessed, right? He said it casually. Now, I got to pick up on that when that was discussed in the book. If that happened to any of my clients, that would not be a casual thing. Mm-hmm. Because we have more intention and purpose within the finances, right? And so it then goes, here's this person that took their financial future casually. They didn't focus on wealth and lifestyle protection, putting in protection measures in place to help them navigate certain things that happen in life, the dynamics of life. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I mean, I'm just asking you, in my 20 years, I'm interested in your experience on this, Andy. Have you ever met with a couple or an individual where everything that you discussed a year ago was exactly the same thing a year later? There was absolutely no changes whatsoever. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's what led to us creating this program, is to have measurable so we can have change, right? As far as the planning, but even their lifestyle, right? Then a lot of times, you know, there is no change, there is no adjustment. Life events occur kind of sometimes unplanned, and so, you know, to be able to navigate around those unplanned events is how you know, when it does happen, it's so important to protecting wealth and lifestyle, you know, as it goes. But then the years that they're boring years, as we say in the planning terms, where there isn't a lot of change that's going on, and there's not a lot of adjustments, then, you know, that's an opportunity just to kind of, you know, reflect and refine. So too often we do have that, which is good at times.
Well, I gotta say this, like, I don't come across it too often, Andy. I'm grateful that the clients in Wichita have very basic scenarios. I just met with a person today. They had an unplanned expense of $6,200 because their tankless water heater went out. $6,200. Now, in their financial plan, we recommended that they had an emergency savings, right? And that money that they had to have for that tankless water heater, we were able to pull from that cash management account. Mm-hmm. Now, but the studies show there's a lot of Americans, I think it's like 42%. I got to go back to the study, so don't quote me on the study, on the percentage, can't handle a $400 unexpected expense. Because we account for the unknowns of life in the financial plan and in the clear picture analysis, when those unknowns occur, we're able to tap into like the emergency savings or to like a line of credit, something so that they're not selling off investments in, like, say, like in a down market. Or if it's a positive market, we could sell off some of the investments because they're playing with the house's money, so to speak, right? Like, we have that arrow in the quiver to account and navigate through that. But could you imagine we do a clear picture analysis for someone and they have a $400 unexpected expense and they couldn't pay for it? Like, come on. Like, that's where the analysis accounts for those things that are unexpected.
Yeah. And on a note there, let's not give Wichita in the Midwest too much credit on that, on my comment. Those are the clients that I work with. You ask my clients, not Wichita and in general. So, but we've been working, everybody's been through it, right? We've gone through this clear picture program with the design to insulate the strategy and insulate that. So when we look at a client's, okay, at the end of the day, you should be running your cash flow like a balance sheet, right, Jason? That's how we identify that. We can look at what your planned expenses are and what your planned income is, right? We can budget in what living is and that. And then at the end of the day, you either are going to have three options. You're going to have a surplus, which means you have more money than you've allocated. So we can be more intentional in saving or planning or budgeting. Or we're going to have a shortage, and that means we're borrowing from our assets. That's probably a bad road to go down. So we'll have to explore more conversations on that. Or you're perfectly break even, which I've never seen. But the reality is that we have to look at it from that lens first, and then identify, because to your point, it will happen. You are going to have an unplanned for higher expenses. We can't, we talk about the dynamics, Jason, like all the time. You're always giving us dropping knowledge on the dynamics of things. But if you think about it, like inflation, how many people 3 or 4 years ago that maybe started a retirement plan would have accounted for the increased cost of living right now due to inflation? Right? Or my personal situation, I've got a kid, we're going through buying a car right now. Who would have thought that I would have to pay for a used car at the levels that I'm having to? I didn't build that into my plan, right? And so that could impact the wealth if we don't plan for it, or better yet, have a discussion, right? That discussion with a qualified advisor like us, or, again, if you're like having these big life decisions, if you're worried that your plan might have a potential, leak in the plan, in the valve, that's where you go to clearpicturefinancial.com and let's talk through it, right? The first step to protecting your wealth is to start a conversation and be open-minded about it. And that's what we hope to encourage. And then you start to put in the implementation. So really excited to engage with anybody that's listening or reviewing that wants to put more protection. And then one more thing I want to throw out real quick before I forget on it, Jason, that you highlighted. As we talk maybe a little bit about our business, I always think this is a good opportunity to explain to clients, our approach and a little bit more about us. You and I work for the same firm. We have our own client books, but we built educational platforms as a joint kind of bridge to help our joint clients or separate clients kind of engage. But you hit it earlier. If either one of us, God forbid, doesn't make it home, right, at any point, we're not guaranteed anything different than anybody else. All the families that you and I have the responsibility to help navigate this for, right? If I'm by myself or you're by yourself, that puts their plan at risk, and their wealth and their lifestyle could massively disrupt if something happens to their advisor. Now, I'm not saying you go off and go to the biggest firm you possibly can, but that's a lot of power behind the Prime Capital brand that we have out there with over 150 advisors. At least we have somewhat of an umbrella, but you and I let's partner up, let's understand, let's build a streamlined process that we both align with, that if any one of us happens, we would be able to step into each other's shoes. And then we just got to rebuild relationships. So I hope clients out there understand how important it is in wealth and lifestyle protection to ensure that your financial partners that are helping you navigate the complexity that you have with your wealth have a plan of what happens if something happens to them. So nobody's going to talk about that right at a discovery meeting, right, Jason? Do you walk up and say, now, if I die, here's how your plan's going to continue to evolve? Like, no, you're not there. But I think it's an important note that I think people need to think about.
They do have to think about, and we don't say it like that, but we do have a team approach.
Yes.
Right? Whether meeting with me and another financial advisor, we always want to have 2 financial advisors in every meeting. That's the goal. There's going to be times where there's one financial advisor in a meeting. There's never a time where there's none. Okay.
This is what it would be like if I weren't here. Now make your own decisions, right? Yeah.
We did have a meeting last week that there was 4 financial advisors for one couple. Imagine that. Like, there was a financial advisor that had a specialty in different areas, and they had a very complex situation, and they were able to have a team of professionals around them. When they left, they were like, that was the best meeting we've ever had with a group of financial advisors. We all stayed in our lane, and we focused on their needs first, second, and third, nothing about anything else. And like, we couldn't do that without the team approach that we have within Prime Capital Investment Advisors, and the team approach that you and I have within our own practices in different parts of the country. But like, no, we have a team approach here in this office where there's multiple advisors in the meeting. But, we were at a Future Proof conference that was by invite only. It was a wonderful experience at the Broadmoor. And on the first kickoff, they were saying The average advisor is in their early 60s, and they're expected to retire in the next 5 to 7 years. And if we have a major market pullback, that could then make it quicker. So if you're sitting there with your financial professional and they have a lot more gray on the beard than Andy and I have, okay, I brought you in on that one, Andy, then it's like, okay, well, then what is their succession plan? And that's not in the discovery meeting, but by goodness gracious, that has to be brought up by our industry to the clients over the, and the statistics that they shared on stage, which I can't repeat because of NDAs and stuff. It is startling how many professionals in this industry have not thought about their own succession plan and making sure that their clients are going to be continually served at the service level agreement that they've created to be passed on. This is maybe out, you could tell those that are watching and listening have heard us for a while. This conversation kind of took a life of its own. This is coming into wealth and lifestyle protection. If you're relying on an advisor for that wealth and lifestyle protection to do it with you, and they're no longer there because they retired, they beat you, they retired before you passed away, or they retired before you retired. So they beat you. What does that mean then? We're looking at trillions of dollars being transferred within our industry due to advisors not passing away unexpectedly, Eddie, but them retiring. You got to be kidding me. What does that leave people?
Yeah. Now
I want to get your opinion. Where does that leave them?
Yeah.
If they don't have this conversation, they don't have this part of the wealth and lifestyle protection.
Well, it takes away, right? It takes away all that resource, all that trust, all that process, right? And so when it comes down to it, right, Jason, that's the whole thing is one, the person. Like you'll never really be able to replace that trusted advisor relationship you had with that person, whether or not your point, they retire, they left the business, whatever it may be, that won't be replaced. Even if you bring in a junior or associate advisor or partner advisor or a book transfer, that doesn't get replaced because that's taken years to build. But what can be streamlined and can be consistent is the process and the way you're being serviced, right? And we should, no matter who it is, data should be looked at the same way. That's what builds consistency. You think McDonald's became successful because every franchisee thought about how to make a hamburger better than the other person? So that way, if that one franchisee were to retire earlier, you could still go back and get the same hamburger no matter who sets foot in that space, right? Now, you may like the guy better or the gal, the franchisee, but it comes to your money, you want to have a consistent process. You don't want to have your review change. You don't want to have a new concept brought into your investment when you're in the same house. So to your point, Jason, it's about building relationship. We leverage the team approach so heavily. Our advisors all have a role, right? I think that's important, right? You've got roles like us that are working on our business, trying to communicate the message and get as many people aware of what they should be thinking about. And hopefully they'll consider engaging with our process. But once you get under the hood, we have planning advisors, we have business development advisors, people that are in the community supporting our nonprofit, directives for ourselves and our clients. You have the planning advisors I mentioned earlier that are so focused in the numbers, right? And they're the ones that like to analyze things, but maybe not want to be as in front of people as often. And then we don't do a very good job without a really good client coordinator who just makes sure that your experience is top notch. What that does for you in wealth and lifestyle protection, everybody that's listening and viewing today, is that it doesn't matter if you're in Jason's office or my office or any other advisor that borrows the Clear Picture Wealth Program, model, you're going to have the same feeling. And that should give you, right, Jason, peace of mind. Now, you're never going to replace a Jason Noble. It's not going to happen. But you can sure at least keep your peace of mind as you transition through. So that's my final nugget as we kind of kick off this next journey. So what do you got to take us home with?
Well, I mean, that's high praise coming from a man that has the nickname The Man, right? So, no, you just watch 20 minutes of clarity. You can see we get pumped up and fired up over stuff that maybe others aren't talking about or thinking about, but that's what makes us unique and different. And I appreciate the partnership that we have, Andy. You just heard Andy, the Man Merchant, and I am Jason Noble. This is 20 Minutes of Clarity. Get ready for this upcoming series on wealth and lifestyle protection. We got more coming at you. Have a good rest of your day.
See you later.